Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into something that, well, touches every single one of us, our relationships.
That's right. We've got your sources lined up, chapter 7, 8, and 9 from The Good Life, part 3. Think of this as your guide to understanding the really important stuff about intimate connections, family bonds, and even those ties you make at work.
You know, it's funny, we often treat these areas of our lives like separate boxes. We have our partner, then there's our family, and then, the people we see every day at our jobs.
Totally. But what your sources really highlight is how these different parts are actually all connected, kind of like underground rivers, profoundly shaping our overall well-being.
Right. So our mission today is to pull out the core insights from these chapters so you can really see how these connections work and, well, why they matter so much.
Okay, let's start with chapter 7, The Person Beside You, How Intimate Relationships Shape Our Lives. It jumps right into that feeling we all know in close relationships, that sense of vulnerability.
Yeah, the closer we get, the more we risk, right? It's like peeling back layers.
Exactly. And that can feel a little scary, but also, incredibly rewarding.
Definitely. And the chapter makes a great point that there's no single magic formula for a happy partnership. What works for one couple might look totally different for another.
And that's always been true across different cultures and times.
For sure. I mean, the fact that non-married households in the U.S. went from just 20% in 1950 to over half by 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, that really shouts out how much the sort of landscape of intimate relationships has changed.
But underneath it all, that fundamental human need for connection, that stays the same.
Totally. And what's fascinating is the story of James Brewer from the Harvard study.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a guy who initially couldn't even wrap his head around the idea of limiting love or attraction to just one gender. But then facing the realities of society back then, he ultimately married a woman he loved deeply.
Wow. It really makes you think about how our personal feelings and choices are often navigating some pretty strong external pressures.
Exactly. The complexities are huge. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into that. The chapter puts a lot of emphasis on understanding our own emotions and how they affect our partners.
Right. It's not just about knowing what we're feeling.
But recognizing the impact it has on the person we're closest to.
Hmm.
Have you ever noticed how your mood can just sort of set the tone for your partner, even if you haven't said a word?
Oh, absolutely. And the case study of Joseph and Olivia Sitchy really brings this home. They had this long marriage, seemed strong on the surface, right? But Olivia felt this constant barrier because Joseph was so guarded, so unwilling to truly open himself up.
Again, from his childhood.
Yeah, stemmed from growing up on a family farm where self-sufficiency was just like everything. He learned he had to handle things himself.
That's such a powerful example of how our early experiences can create these really deep patterns in our relationships later on.
Totally.
Joseph's desire to be strong and independent, well, understandable, actually prevented him from achieving that deeper intimacy with Olivia.
It makes you wonder, what are we maybe unknowingly holding on to from our past that might be creating similar walls in our own connections?
That's a crucial question, because as the chapter highlights, intimacy at its core is about making ourselves known, intimare in Latin.
Right, to make known.
And when we're constantly keeping parts of ourselves hidden, we're missing out on the richness of truly being seen and understood.
And this need for connection starts so early, doesn't it? The chapter then brings in intimate attachment and Mary Ainsworth's strange situation experiment.
Ah, yes, that classic study with the babies and caregivers.
Exactly. For those who aren't familiar, it looks at how babies react when their caregiver leaves and then comes back.
And what's so insightful is how it reveals these different attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant.
Which can really shape how we approach relationships throughout our entire lives.
It really makes you think about your own tendencies, doesn't it? Do you generally feel secure and trusting, or do you lean more towards anxiety or maybe avoidance?
And what's fascinating is how these early experiences create this sort of internal blueprint for how relationships are supposed to work.
A blueprint, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
A securely attached child learns, okay, my needs will probably be met, which builds trust. But if those early experiences are inconsistent or neglectful, it can lead to more insecure patterns later on.
Makes sense. Then the chapter introduces Henry and Rosa Keene.
Right, a couple who faced some really significant life challenges together.
And they consistently relied on each other.
Yes, they're presented as this wonderful example of a securely connected couple weathering all sorts of storms, their child's illness, job loss, even their own health scares.
Ah.
They did it by leaning on each other.
And it's those simple things sometimes, isn't it? Like holding hands. The chapter talks about that James Caan brain imaging study.
Oh, yeah, the hand-holding study, it's incredible, found that physical touch with someone you love can actually calm your brain's fear response.
Right. And even less in pain, almost like a mild natural anesthetic.
Oh.
Amazing.
It really underscores that these connections are more than just, emotional feel-goods. They have a real, tangible physiological impact.
And George Vaillance's finding, that's the one that always gets me,
Which one?
that marital happiness at age 50 is a better predictor of late-life physical health than cholesterol levels at that same age.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? About the long-term benefits of healthy relationships.
Totally. The chapter beautifully describes emotions as depth indicators for our relationships.
Depth indicators, I like that.
Yeah, like when strong feelings come up, good or bad, they're signaling something important about the connection itself.
And it highlights the vital roles of empathy and affection.
The research showing that couples who express more warmth and where men show they understand their partner's feelings during arguments,
Yeah.
they're more likely to stay together. It really speaks volumes. It's not about avoiding conflict.
Right, it's about how you navigate it with compassion.
Exactly. Then the chapter delves into something we all experience, the fear of differences.
Oh, yeah. Initially, when we notice ways our partner is different, it can feel a bit unsettling, can it?
Definitely. Like it's challenging our own view of the world or, our shared future.
But the analogy of ballroom dancing is so spot on.
I love that one.
It's not about never stepping on each other's toes. It's about how you recover when you do.
Do you get frustrated and point fingers, or do you kind of laugh it off and find your rhythm again?
Exactly. That resilience in the face of those inevitable missteps seems key.
What's insightful is the idea of disagreements as undervalued opportunities.
Say more about that.
Well, instead of just seeing them as negative things to avoid, they can actually bring underlying tensions to the surface
Okay.
and give you a chance to deepen your understanding of each other and sort of revitalize the relationship through honest conversation.
That makes sense. And the concept of mutual vulnerability is presented as a real source of strength.
Right. Sharing your fears and insecurities with someone you trust. It creates a deeper bond.
And can actually relieve stress and foster a sense of security.
But even the best relationships need that ongoing care, right? Like watering a plant. You can't just set it and forget it.
Absolutely not. Needs nourishment.
The contrasting stories of Leo DeMarco and John Marsden really drive this home.
Yeah, Leo had the happy, affectionate marriage, and John, well, his was more distant and unhappy.
And it shows the long-lasting impact on their overall well-being, even their physical health, as they got older.
In their later experiences, when facing life's challenges, highlighted it further. Leo naturally turned to his wife for comfort.
While John tended to isolate himself, that attachment security playing out.
The chapter wraps up by acknowledging the often, sky-high expectations we place on our intimate partners.
So true.
And how unmet needs from other parts of our lives can put a real strain on these relationships.
But it also gives some really practical advice, which is great.
Yeah, like actively noticing and appreciating your partner's kindness, catch them being kind.
I like that. And breaking out of familiar routines to inject some freshness.
And using the WISER model during disagreements.
All right, WISER, watch, interpret, step into their shoes, explore options, respond.
Along with reflective listening and really trying to understand your partner's perspective.
They feel like really concrete tools we can all use. Okay, so that's a deep dive into our closest relationships. Now let's turn the page to Chapter 8, Family Matters.
Right. This chapter reminds us that our family relationships are truly foundational. They're a core part of who we are and have a huge impact on our well-being. But it also touches on that ongoing debate. How much influence do they really have? Early experiences versus genetics.
Yeah, that classic nature versus nurture thing. And it immediately challenges the idea that family relationships are, set in stone.
They're constantly evolving, aren't they?
Totally. As kids grow into teenagers, then adults, and as parents age, the roles and dynamics within a family are always shifting.
Being able to adapt to those changes seems so crucial for keeping those family bonds healthy.
What's fascinating is the chapter's exploration of what we even mean by family today.
It goes way beyond the traditional nuclear model, right?
Oh, yeah. Includes extended families, step relationships, adoptive families, blended families.
And even those chosen families, like the example of ballroom culture within the LGBTQ plus community.
That example is so powerful. It shows how that sense of belonging and mutual support can create a family in the truest sense, even without blood ties.
Absolutely. What truly defines a family, according to your sources, are those close, nurturing units that have a formative influence on our lives, however they're structured.
But even with all these diverse structures, the chapter reminds us that we all carry the ghosts of our childhoods.
Yeah. And the lasting impact of our families of origin.
The idea of psychological heirlooms, those beliefs, habits, patterns we inherit, both the good and the bad, that really hits home.
Especially difficult or traumatic early experiences, they can leave such deep, lasting imprints.
And the chapter directly tackles this common narrative, the abused villain trope in movies and books.
Right, where a tough childhood is seen as inevitably leading to a negative future.
But it's reassuring to hear that this isn't a foregone conclusion. Emmy Werner's longitudinal study on Kauai.
Oh, the Kauai study. Yes, that offers such a hopeful perspective.
It really does. While it did show a link between adverse childhood events and well-being.
It also highlighted the incredible resilience of many kids who grew into well-adjusted adults.
And those protective factors, especially having at least one caring adult in their lives, made a huge difference.
A massive difference.
And the finding that openly acknowledging and talking about challenges both as kids and as adults is linked to getting support. That feels like a really important takeaway.
It really does. Then we meet Neil McCarthy. His story is a great illustration of how we can build on both the good and the bad family experiences.
Okay, tell us about Neil.
Well, he had a really positive early childhood, lots of support, but then his adolescence was marked by his mother's struggles with alcoholism.
Oh, wow. Tough transition.
Very tough. Yet he was able to draw strength from those early positive memories and the unwavering support of his father to navigate that really difficult period.
That foundation mattered. The details about his early family life, the interviewer noting his mother's kindness, the kids respecting her, Neil having responsibilities, choosing good friends, it paints a picture of a really solid start.
Yeah, it does. And later, his secure relationship with his wife, Gail, is highlighted. That became a real anchor for them, especially when they faced challenges with their daughter Lucy's struggles.
Right, with shyness, bullying, addiction, mental health, a lot to handle.
A huge amount. But their approach, facing it together, offering support without, detaching completely, and that underlying family love eventually helping them through, it's a powerful example of navigating really tough family times.
And Neil's question, did he ask himself if he'd done something wrong as a parent?
He did. It really resonates with that common feeling of guilt and responsibility parents often feel when their kids struggle.
It's such a reminder that parenting is incredibly complex, isn't it? So many factors are at play.
Absolutely. The chapter emphasizes that no single element dictates a child's future. It's this intricate mix of nature, nurture, heredity, environment, parenting, peers, all of it.
And then it introduces this really encouraging idea of corrective experiences.
Yes. I love this concept. The idea that powerful positive experiences later in life can actually help to reshape negative expectations formed by earlier, tougher experiences.
Life keeps offering us these opportunities, right? But we need to be open to them.
We have to recognize them and let them in. And the practical advice on how to cultivate these is great.
Like tuning into difficult feelings, noticing those unexpected positive moments.
Actively catching people behaving well, especially family members.
And staying open to seeing people, particularly family, in new ways, not just through the old lens.
That discussion of the you always, you never trap in families is so relatable.
Oh, definitely. We all have those ingrained images, don't we?
It's so easy to just see them through that old script. The importance of recognizing that people grow and change is crucial.
And that simple question, what's here that I've never noticed before? Using that as a tool to bring fresh perspective to family interactions, that could be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it really shifts your focus. Ultimately, the chapter argues that despite all the inevitable challenges, family relationships are worth the trouble.
Because of that shared history, those unique experiences.
Exactly, those deep connections that are truly irreplaceable. It underscores the need to adapt as roles shift within families over time.
Utilizing that family wealth,
Right.
The different knowledge, skills, and experiences everyone brings requires us to stay connected and be willing to ask for help.
Right. And those proactive ways to strengthen bonds, being aware of our automatic reactions, setting up routines for contact like calls or get-togethers.
And appreciating the unique buried treasure each family member holds, like grandparents' stories or siblings' shared memories.
And that point about family dinners, their connection to so many positive outcomes for kids, higher grades, self-esteem, lower substance abuse.
It really highlights the power of those regular, simple moments of connection. Okay, so we've explored the intimate and familial realms. Now let's turn our attention to Chapter 9, The Good Life at Work, Investing in Connections.
Right. This chapter shifts focus to something we often overlook, the impact of our relationships at work.
Yeah, it makes a really compelling argument that these connections are actually something we can influence.
And that they can immediately improve our daily experience no matter what our job title is.
The contrasting experiences really highlight this. Henry Keene, happier in a less prestigious job because of the camaraderie.
Uh-huh. Versus others in seemingly dream jobs who were miserable.
It really underscores that pay and status aren't the only ingredients for workplace satisfaction.
Not at all. And the fictional example of Loren juggling that stressful job and home life.
Yeah, that illustrates those common challenges and that feeling of work and personal life being totally separate worlds.
But then that unexpected connection she makes with her coworker Javier just sparked by offering help with his car. Right. It shows how reaching out, offering support, can lead to friendship and actually reduce stress.
And it's interesting how their collaboration on work tasks, the software, the filing, not only made their jobs easier, but created this sense of shared accomplishment.
It highlights that even achievement feels better when it's relational, when it's shared.
Yeah. And Lauren's growing friendship with Javier started to blur those artificial lines between work and personal life,
Allowing some positive energy to flow between the two.
It's a good reminder that while we don't always get to choose our coworkers, those differences can actually lead to unique understanding and connection.
Definitely. And the statistics on how much time we spend working, gosh, in the UK, more time than socializing with friends or even intimate partners over a lifetime.
Crazy, isn't it? It really emphasizes the sheer importance of these workplace relationships.
And the regrets expressed by the older Harvard study participants.
Ooh, about prioritizing work over family and relationships. That's a stark reminder, isn't it, of what really matters in the long run.
It really is. The chapter delves into the complex interplay between work, leisure, relationships, and well-being. It suggests that when things feel off balance, it often comes down to how we're nurturing connections in different areas.
Like Michael Dawkins' regret about being mentally preoccupied with work even when he was physically home.
Yeah, that illustrates that often unseen cost of workaholism on family life.
But then we see the positive side again with Henry Keene and Leo DeMarco, who both found real joy and purpose in their workplace relationships.
Right. And Rebecca Taylor relying on her kids' support during a tough time as a single working mom, that shows how home relationships can be a source of strength when work gets overwhelming.
The spillover effect, that's a really important point. Work emotions affecting home life.
Yes, Mark's study showing that tough work days were linked to more negative behavior at home, even if people thought they left work stress at work.
Wow. So recognizing this is the first step to managing it.
Exactly. And the WISER model comes up again, suggested as a tool for navigating difficult workplace interactions. Shows how those relational skills are transferable.
Okay. Then the story of Victor Murad, the trucking company partner who felt lonely.
Yeah, that illustrates a different kind of poverty, a lack of meaningful connection at work, which can be a real health concern.
And the chapter points out that with the rise of more solitary jobs, both traditional and tech-based, this is an increasingly important issue.
We need to actively create opportunities for social connection at work, even if the role itself is typically isolating.
And Gallup's research showing that having a best friend at work is actually linked to higher engagement.
Right. It totally challenges that old idea that workplace friendships are just a distraction or hinder productivity.
It's also crucial, though, to acknowledge the workplace inequities and prejudices.
Absolutely. Those faced by marginalized groups can create significant barriers to forming authentic relationships.
The examples of Rebecca Taylor facing sexism from male doctors and Mary Ainsworth encountering it in academia, they really bring these challenges to light.
And the ongoing imbalance in home care responsibilities, plus the risks of power imbalances negatively impacting workplace relationships, like Ellen Frohn's experience, these are important realities.
Definitely. The concept of mentorship is introduced as a really valuable type of workplace relationship.
Yeah, benefiting both mentor and mentee, fostering growth and that sense of generativity.
The story of Bob and Mark's mentorship highlights that mutual learning and vulnerability involved.
And the chapter reminds us to reassess relationships during work transitions, promotions, layoffs, new jobs, retirement.
Right, and actively seek out new connections during those times.
Right.
Retirement especially is presented as a complex transition.
Big relational challenges there, finding new sources of meaning and social interaction to replace what might be lost from a career.
The experiences of Leo DeMarco and Henry Keene really highlight that longing for workplace camaraderie, that sense of still mattering.
hmm And finally, the chapter touches on how work itself is evolving so rapidly. Tech, automation, remote work.
Yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic really highlighted our need for those workplace connections, didn't it?
It really did. And while remote work offers flexibility, the potential impact on well-being due to reduced in-person contact is a real concern.
Something we need to be mindful of and address proactively, thinking about our social fitness, as the book calls it.
Exactly. Finding ways to cultivate connection in these new work environments.
The chapter concludes by urging us to really pay attention to our present work lives and relationships because, wow, time goes by fast.
So fast. It leaves us with some really thought-provoking questions. Who do you value at work? Who's different from you? Are you missing connections?
Do you really know your workmates? How do workday experiences influence your home life? Ellen Frunn's regret about not paying more attention serves as that final reminder.
That work is also life, and enriching it with relationships is truly beneficial.
Wow, this has been such a fascinating exploration of, well, the interconnectedness of all our relationships.
It really has. We've seen how vulnerability can lead to deep intimacy, how families are constantly changing and need our adaptation.
And how investing in our workplace connections can bring unexpected rewards and help us manage stress. So much good stuff here.
We really hope these insights have given you some food for thought, maybe some aha moments, and some practical ideas for nurturing the relationships that matter most to you.
Absolutely. And this is just the beginning, really. We encourage you to take some time, think about your own relationships in light of what we've discussed today.
Yeah, what resonated most with you? What are maybe some small steps you could take to strengthen those connections?
Good questions to ponder.
Join us next time on the Deep Dive as we delve into another set of your sources and hopefully uncover more surprising and valuable insights.
We look forward to it. Until then, keep exploring.